The Volvo XC70 was equipped only with engines of its own design. At first, all engines were 5 and 6 cylinder. Since 2013, completely new 4-cylinder engines have appeared, which we will definitely talk about. 2 plus 238 horsepower, B6324S, B6324S2, B6324S4, B6324S5, 3.0 285, 304 horsepower, B6304T2, B6304T4. Let's start with old, large and power-hungry engines. The Volvo XC70 was equipped with proprietary inline sixes mounted transversely in the engine compartment. The 3.2-liter engine is naturally aspirated, and the 3-liter engine is turbocharged. These engines were and are considered very reliable, but they are expensive to maintain and require special equipment to service the timing chain located on the transmission side. By the way, the lowest timing chain pulley is driven from the crankshaft by helical gears. Due to this layout on the driver's side, i.e. above the gearbox, the air conditioning compressor and power steering pump are located. The pump is located coaxially with the power steering pump. It is embedded in the end cover of the engine, i.e. into the timing case. And the generator is located under the intake manifold coaxially with a special pulley that drives the belt of the attached units, the compressor and the power steering pump. The pulley 31316803 that drives the attachment belt has a built-in overrunning clutch. The generator from this coupling is not driven rigidly, but using a special clutch. This is a pair of coaxial gears or pulleys connected by a rubber clip 30,750,111. The pulley closest to the generator, 31,316,804, is located on its shaft and has another overrunning clutch. A similar story with the water pump and power steering pump. The pulley, driven by the belt, is mounted on the shaft of the power steering pump, 30,750,803. On the other hand, the clutch, 31,219,096, is connected to this pulley based on a coiled spring, which, on the other hand, is connected to the pump pulley. It sounds complicated, but the problem with this whole mechanism is that where any overrunning clutch or clutch, as you understand, there are two of these parts, leads to serious problems. If the main overrunning clutch fails, i.e. 31,316,803 jams, then the increased vibrations will destroy the clutch of the generator, so charging will be lost and will damage the air conditioning compressor, and the power steering pumps and cooling system too. To replace the generator clutch, you will have to remove the timing chain. If the pump squeaks and starts to jam, it will break its clutch. Vibrations from its side will harm other units. In general, any rustling sounds from under the hood of a Volvo with inline sixes 3.2 and 3.0 cannot be ignored, and it is better to immediately go to a service station, ideally with a tow truck. Overrunning clutches last at least 150,000 kilometers and you cannot save on them. The alternator clutch, 31,316,804, costs from $30 to $110, and the main clutch, 31,316,803, costs from $30 to $500 for the original. The oil seal, 30,711,317. Behind this clutch lasts a little over 150,000 kilometers and begins to leak oil, which the clutch scatters throughout the timing case. It is better to change both of them together. If suddenly such a 6 under the hood of the XC70 beeps and whistles, then this indicates a hole in the oil trap membrane, 31,319,643, of the crankcase ventilation system. The original cover costs about $330, but also lasts about 200,000 kilometers. There are non-original oil separators priced from $60 to $200, as well as repair kits for $20 to $30. Once every 200,000 kilometers, oil leaks from under the vacuum pump, which are equipped with engines 3.0 and 3.2, will have to be repaired. For these purposes, a repair kit is used that costs from $30 to $170 for the original, 31,401,556. After 200,000 kilometers, you will almost certainly have to change the gasket, 30,711,317, of the timing chain cover. Look for and fix leaks in the cooling system pipes, 30,774,513. Under the intake manifold and from the radiator, 31,293,622, to the thermostat, 30,774,489. The most common versions of the XC70 on sale and on the roads are those with 5-cylinder turbo diesels. Such engines come with 1 turbine and 2 D5 185 horsepower D5244T4, 2.4 D163 horsepower D5244T5, P24T16, P5244T17. Older 5-cylinder engines are equipped with 1 Garrett turbocharger, 36,002,651. At high mileage, the electromechanical servo drive of this turbine geometry can cause wear and tear on the plastic gears. Such motors also have swirl flaps. Their actuator is located in front of the cylinder head on the navigator's side. The valves themselves, 30,677,602, are located in the cylinder head, in its wall in front of the intake camshaft. The dampers themselves are plastic, strung on a steel axis. What problems happen to them? Due to carbon deposits and broken plastic axle supports, they jam. If they jam, and then problems with boost will arise. The engine will literally begin to hiss with air that cannot pass through half of the open intake channels. Due to jamming of the dampers, the plastic rod, 8,692,676, of the dampers comes off, which only aggravates the blockage of half of the intake channels. Due to the place where the rod is attached to the damper axis, oil will begin to leak over time. This is oil vapor from the intake manifold that will be blown out. The damper actuator, 30,756,099, wears out and dies less often. To replace the flap skewer, 30,677,602, you need to buy it, spending from $60 to $250. By the way, the original skewer is sold only by itself, and non-original repair kits, in addition to it, include a rod, a valve cover gasket, and even copper washers for the injectors. To replace the swirl flaps, you need to remove the fuel lines, injectors, and valve cover because air channels pass through it. The valve should be replaced every 150,000 kilometers. At the same time, you can check the injectors and, which is also important, stir them up before they become stubborn due to burnout of the washers. 2.4 D 175 horsepower, V5244T14, V3 163 horsepower, V5204T2, V5204T3, D4 181 horsepower, D5244T12, D5 205 horsepower, D5244T10, D5 215 horsepower, D5244T11, D5244T15. Since 2010, updated 5-cylinder diesel engines have been installed on the Volvo XC70. Literally all of them are twin-turbo, with a pair of Borg-Warner turbos bolted to the top and bottom of the exhaust manifold. Both turbines have no geometry, only bypass valves driven by vacuum actuators. However, there are also engines with one turbine. This is a 2.4-liter engine with catalog number D5244T14. It has a single Garrett turbine with an electromechanical servo, 36,002,619, bolted to the bottom of the exhaust manifold. This engine was sold only in 2010 and was replaced by 2.0-liter 5-cylinder engines, D5204T2, D5204T3. The 2-liter engines also have one Garrett turbine, 36,012,381, but with a vacuum drive geometry. Such motors do not have any swirl flaps, but they have a network of vacuum tubes and 1 or 2 vacuum valves. There are no questions about the reliability of such engines, however, versions with a power of more than 200 horsepower. In case of inept chip tuning, an incorrectly sewn EGR valve and overheating, cracks in the cylinder block or blowing of the cylinder head gasket occur. Gases from the cylinders will enter the cooling system. All 5-cylinder engines also had a problem with the lowest pipe from the turbine to the intercooler. It goes around the engine pan from below. It is the longest and the only aluminum of all. The only foot support with which it is screwed to the engine bursts. A crack may appear at the place where it is attached. These troubles can be eliminated by argon welding. Moreover, it is better to make the mount better, wider with support for the pipe from below, and not from the side. An improved pipe, 31,370,489, costs more than $300, sometimes found at disassembly sites at a price 3 to 4 times cheaper. But when installing it, you will have to change the 2 rubber pipes closest to it, 31,370,488 and 31,370,490, which cost from $50 to $300. You can assemble a set from non-original silicone pipes. In general, there are many ways to solve this problem. Since 2007, literally all Volvo 5-cylinder turbodiesels have suffered and may still suffer from broken attachment belts. In some cases, the ridge belt could wrap under its pulley and get deeper under the plastic casing, wrapping around the crankshaft timing pulley. In such cases, the belt jumped, and the pistons could hit the valves with such force that they, through their rocker arms, broke out the hydraulic compensator sockets from the cylinder head. In general, it is the attachment belt, alternator belt, on diesel 5s that needs to be given attention. Now we will tell you more about this. The problem with the attachment belt on Volvo diesel 5s is that a lot of dirt gets on it. Although the initial reason was the incorrectly selected belt length and the inappropriate strength of the tension roller, according to the recall campaign, until 2011, the belts and roller were replaced with completely new ones. The alternator belt on Volvo diesel 5s needs to be changed every 60,000 kilometers or every 3 years, precisely because of the influence of dirt. Volvo engineers still decided to protect the belt from everything that falls on it from the road. You need to buy 2 original shields, 31,407,737 and 31,402,785, and 3 fastening clips, 6,849,584. Today you will have to spend about $100 on all these parts. All this is installed in the front right wheel arch. The instructions are described in the technical journal, TG-81SC, but that's not all. There is a special protection that is installed on the engine cover around the crankshaft pulley, 30,731,907, 30,757,554. This plastic shield will be located under the damper pulley of the attachment belt. In 2011, Volvo engineers came up with another protection option, 31,293,007. Such a shield now also serves as a bed for the crankshaft front oil seal. The seal is built into the shield, and the whole thing is sold as a single part for $80. In general, Swedish engineers try their best to protect the timing belt from being screwed onto its pulley by a broken alternator belt. We advise owners to take all measures to protect the belt from dirt. Let us add that folk craftsmen have invented a metal shield for the damper pulley. It is much stronger and even has something like a blade that will cut a broken generator belt and prevent it from breaking the shield itself and wrapping around the crankshaft pulley under the timing belt. D4 181 horsepower, D4204T5. The car presented in the review is equipped with the latest generation Bitturbo diesel. These are VEA series motors, also known as Drive E, which appeared in 2013 and are still in production. The cylinder block is an aluminum 4-cylinder with cast iron liners, a timing belt drive. There is a balancer block with a toothed gear drive from the crankshaft, and a 2-stage oil pump. Turbochargers are installed above and below the exhaust manifold, i.e. each of them can be unscrewed separately. For this particular engine, both Borg-Warner turbochargers 36,010,047, 36,010,048 do not have a controlled geometry and are equipped with wastegates, with pneumatic actuators. By the way, they do not work in series, but in parallel. When it's time to blow the high-pressure turbocharger, its cold impeller sucks in the air that has already been inflated by the small turbine. The air channels are switched by a special valve, 31,293,679, in the intake tract after both turbines. Another important point: the fuel system of this diesel engine is supplied by Denso. This is a complex common rail system, with 4th-generation injectors. Each such nozzle has 2 sensors, pressure and temperature. The big disadvantage is that such injectors, 31,336,769, are not diagnosed by every center, are not repaired and are not sold new. But there are also advantages. The entire Denso fuel system of Drive E diesel engines is really very reliable. Many copies have traveled more than 400,000 kilometers. On the used market, such smart Denso injectors can be found at prices starting from $100 a piece. Yes, and the Drive E diesel engines themselves are very reliable indeed. They don't have any serious problems. True, they readily sweat oil on the plastic valve cover and on the crankshaft seals. The valve cover here is part of the intake manifold, as on 5-cylinder diesel engines. A valve cover gasket 30,777,600 for such a diesel engine costs from $20 to $80. A complete timing belt kit, 31,401,542, will cost about $300. 2.0 T5 245 horsepower, V4204T11. In 2013, the Volvo XC70 received a 4-cylinder turbo engine, also from the Drive E family. In general, diesel and gasoline engines of the Drive E family are as unified as possible. Although, if we return to the Drive E diesel, then the timing belt drives only the intake camshaft, and in the rear of the cylinder head both camshafts are connected by a gear drive. On petrol Drive S, the timing belt drives both camshafts through gears with phase shifters built into them. A timing belt kit, 31,430,176, for a gasoline engine will cost $150 to $250. By the way, there are no hydraulic compensators in the valve drive, but this is not surprising for gasoline engines. This has been a Swedish tradition since the 1990s. The new 4-cylinder T5 engine has one turbine, 36,012,431, and lasts a long time. The new gasoline engine has an electric pump, 31,368,715. So far it works without any complaints. A new one costs from $250 to $800. The oil pump, 31,401,488. is two-staged. There are balancer shafts. The Drive E petrol turbo 4s also serve well and don't fall apart. M66 6-street manual transmission. Volvo XC70 3rd generation were equipped with 6-speed mechanical and automatic transmissions. The M66 mechanics from Ford are reliable and serve excellently. Dual mass flywheels are also not very disturbing and can travel about 300,000 kilometers or more. Automatic transmissions were available with literally all available engines, including the derated drive modification, not to be confused with the later Drive E, with front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Aisin TF-80SC 6-speed automatic transmission. The 6-speed Aisin transmission is very reliable and is not a weak point of Volvo cars. The only thing is that on cars produced in 2013 to 2016, it was equipped with unsuccessful shaft sealing rings. Because of them, pressure losses occurred when drive was turned on and off. The company tried to eliminate these kicks by modifying transmission control algorithms, i.e. change the firmware. But if all this does not help, then you will have to open the automatic and change the sealing rings to new rings with more airtight locks. In 6-street automatic ATF Toyota ATF4 or a more fluid WS is suitable. It is necessary to perform a partial replacement every 50,000 kilometers. Aisin TG-81SC 8-speed automatic transmission. The latest Drive E engines are equipped with only 8-speed automatic and front-wheel drive transmission. The TG-81SC automatic transmission is also very reliable and durable. It is filled with Toyota WS ATF, which should also be changed every 50,000 kilometers for a long service life. With a mileage of about 200,000 kilometers, the Volvo XC70 may begin to act strange. The symptoms will be completely different, from floating engine speed, to electronic errors, to problems with control units. The engine may simply suddenly stall. The reasons for this behavior can be sought for a very long time. In fact, they are all frayed wiring. A known weak point is located above the automatic transmission, next to the battery. It is best to proactively inspect the wiring in this area and eliminate damage. They are caused solely by friction of the wiring against nearby parts. And, of course, add a protective layer to the engine compartment braid in this place. Also, the wiring may fray in the area of the generator in diesel versions, and in the XC70 with petrol 6s the wiring to the ignition coils and sensors is crumbling, that is, the entire section of wires laid along the valve cover. The power steering pump in the Volvo XC70 is rather weak and demanding on the quality and purity of the oil. If you do not refresh the CHF11S fluid every 5 years, then one day the power steering performance will decrease. The steering wheel will be difficult to rotate. This symptom appears in the warm season. During troubleshooting, where on the control valve is usually detected, leading to its jamming. A non-original power steering pump costs about $100. You can buy a valve for it separately. The engine cooling radiator must be washed every 2 to 3 years and removed. A lot of dirt gets packed into the narrow space between it and the intercooler. In regions with wet winters and an abundance of reagents, serious corrosion of the main radiator may occur. Radiator cooling fans may stop working over time, but they can be restored by replacing brushes and bearings, which are commercially available. All diesel XC70s were equipped with a Webasto TTV auxiliary heater. It is installed in the front right fender liner closer to the threshold. At high mileage, this heater may begin to smoke or gurgle loudly. These are symptoms of a problem. But this device can be easily repaired. The fan with control module and nozzle assembly can be replaced relatively inexpensively. To avoid problems with it, you should not use it before the onset of severe cold, and before that, and in fact, before using Webasto regularly, you need to refuel with good winter diesel fuel. Also, for Webasto to start well, a battery must be fully charged. The all-wheel drive system of the Volvo XC70 is based on the Haldex clutch of the 4th and, after restyling, the 5th generation. These couplings must be serviced. Although formally they are considered maintenance-free. Changing the oil in these couplings significantly extends their service life. The electric pump motor and control unit will not burn out due to excessive loads caused by pumping dirty thick oil. Although, with a mileage of more than 200,000 kilometers, it is necessary to change the carbon brushes in the electric motor of the pump. The 4th generation Haldex has a filter located directly above the drive shaft. 31,325,173, and the oil can be drained by removing the electric pump. It is under the drive shaft. The 5th generation Haldex coupling does not have a filter. The oil is drained after dismantling the electric pump. All waste products from the coupling must be washed with a cleaner. It is highly advisable to install the pump with new screws and seals. Such a kit today costs about $130, $31,259,351, and $100, $31,325,413, for 4th and 5th generation couplings, respectively. Refilling takes a liter of special oil, $31,325,136, $31,367,940. The original costs about $60. There is a cheaper analog. At 200,000 kilometers and later, owners of a Volvo XC70 with all-wheel drive will experience the following troubles. Clicking noises will appear when switching from drive to reverse, and an oil leak will occur at the junction between the gearbox and the bevel gear. These two transmission units will have to be separated to eliminate oil leakage, and it can leak from both the gearbox and the gearbox. You will have to change their oil seals. $30,713,728 and $30,713,729. You will also have to change the connecting sleeve. $30,787,669. Often the oil seals no grooves in it, and the splines in the bushing corrode and wear out. It is the play in this place that causes those very clicks. If there is severe wear, all the splines may break off, then the torque will not be transmitted to the drive shaft and the rear axle. A new original bushing will cost about $300. There are a couple of analogs that are a little cheaper. The drive shaft of the Volvo XC70 is suspended on 2 supports with bearings, and is connected to the transmission and Haldex CV joints at the front and rear. The support bearings and crosspiece are maintenance-free. Closer to 200,000 kilometers, dirt and moisture kill them, squeaks and vibrations appear. The crosspiece and support bearings are replaced at drive shaft repair services. CV joints wear out due to cracks in the boots. Original CV joints $31,216,177 sell for $400. There are replacements for $70. If we are only talking about a burst boot, then you can buy a non-original boot assembly with a cover for about $40. In both gearboxes, front corner and rear. It would be a good idea to refresh the oil once every 50,000 kilometers. They use mineral oil with GL5 approval, but its grades differ slightly in viscosity. In both cases, a liter jar is enough for refilling under the cork. The cost of the original is about $50. In the rear gearbox, $1,161,620. In the angular gearbox, $31,259,380. By the way, there were many cases when the rear gearbox of a Volvo XC70 began to hum after a mileage of about 100,000 kilometers. It hums due to wear on the shank bearing, i.e. drive gear shaft. Specialized services can replace these bearings without any problems. The suspension of the Volvo XC70 is typical for platforms with a transverse engine. The original suspension does not break and is quite durable. It's difficult to talk about actual service life, because this all-terrain station wagon can spend its entire life driving on asphalt, and can also regularly jump off-road. It all depends on the operation. Sometimes some expensive suspension replacements happen after 200,000 kilometers. Original McPherson strut arms cost about $500, $31,277,345. Analogs from $90 to $270. You can buy both silent blocks for them separately. The original rear one, $31,387,571, will cost $170, and a high-quality replacement will cost no more than $70. The ball joint can be replaced and secured with screws and nuts. A non-original one will cost $30 to $70. Moisture and dirt can penetrate into the support bearings of the front struts, $31,277,826, causing them to squeak. Original strut mounts cost up to $80, and replacements are half that price. Sometimes, along with the supports, you will have to change the shock absorbers themselves, $31,340,316. They will cost from $100 to $500. The silent blocks of the trailing arms and the rear suspension are rather weak. They can be purchased separately, $31,406,350, at prices ranging from $20 to $240. Passive rear suspension shock absorbers, $31,262,315, sell today for $25 to $230. Rear suspension transverse links cost up to $130. $31,262,931 and $230, $31,406,749 for originals, and up to $70 for replacements. You can also purchase non-original silent blocks for them separately. By the way, do not ignore cracked rear suspension bump stops. They are located inside the springs. Original fenders cost about $50, $31,277,310, and replacements are almost 8 times cheaper. By the way, a lot of suspension parts are suitable from Ford cars, such as Mondeo 4, Galaxy 2, S-Max. Original Ford bump stops cost about $25, $1,545,067. It's hard to complain about the Volvo body. It's beautifully painted and perfectly protected from corrosion. However, long wet winters with an abundance of reagents on the roads can leave their red mark. Corrosion can appear in the wheel arches and on the underbody, especially along the sills. Even the oldest copies of these machines, which are operated in particularly salty conditions, can surprise you with serious damage to the subframes. They rust into dust and can literally fall apart. Sometimes, due to moisture, parking sensors fail and even their braid breaks off. Original new sensors cost $50 each, but there are many replacements on the market. Sensors from Ford and even Nissan models are also suitable. The side mirrors of these cars are seriously damaged by dampness. Their silumen skeleton corrodes extremely actively. It gets to the point where the silumen base simply bursts and the mirror hangs on the wires. But much more often the mirror folding mechanism simply stops working. A lot of oxides powder collect inside and clog everything. In addition, moisture can lead to oxidation of the contacts in the connectors. All this can be repaired. Parts can be replaced. Motor, gears, and everything can be lubricated. The problem is so widespread and simply annoying that craftsmen began to print brackets from plastic to replace silumen ones. In addition, sometimes the glass of the mirrors on these cars simply peeled off and fell off. Another victim of dampness is the windshield wiper trapezium. And the point is not even that the hinges of the levers wear out, play or wedging appears due to corrosion. The fact is that water gets onto the control unit with the trapezoid gearbox. And the sealing of the halves of the electronics housing is very weak. In general, the wipers may simply stop working, without even showing preliminary symptoms such as jamming or slow swings. Sometimes the electronic board of the windshield wiper motor, damaged by moisture, can be repaired. It's better not to wait for troubles with a trapeze. The original one costs $31,333,457, about $800, and no one offers analogs. Car dismantling shops offer trapezoids for these cars at prices ranging from $50 to $130. In any case, it is worth servicing the trapezoid hinges and sealing the cover of the electronic unit. Sometimes on Volvo XC70s manufactured before 2014, moisture gets into the license plate lamps and even into the rear door lock. The pins in the electrical connectors and the lampshades are seriously corroded, and in the electromechanical drive of the rear door lock, the contact wires disappear due to corrosion. All this can be inexpensively eliminated by replacing connectors, soldering and sometimes cleaning the contacts from corrosion. The tailgate gas struts and servo are hidden in the roof and connected to the door hinges. If the door does not have a servo drive and no longer holds normally in the upper position, then you need to buy 2 identical stops. $31,217,640, costing from $20 to $100 a piece. If a door with a servo drive does not hold well, then 2 different stops are needed, $31,335,795 and $31,217,640. The price range is the same. But if the servo does not work, but the door wiring is fine, then you will have to look for a used motor block, $31,386,722, since a new one costs about $1,300. But in general, it lasts a very long time and fails due to the failure of the hall sensor. Few craftsmen are willing to repair such a servo drive. The Volvo XC70 was equipped with a protective separating grille between the trunk and the passenger compartment. So, over time, it begins to fix poorly and falls from the folded position. Those stops sticking to the ceiling. You will also have to change its gas stops. The original ones cost $60 a piece, $39,859,356, and a pair of Chinese analogs are half the price. Another proprietary weakness of Volvo is the short-lived electric motors in the door locks. We already talked about this in our XC60 review. You can buy non-original lock motors in China and replace them. Volvo XC70, especially cars produced from 2009 to 2012, were surprised by the appearance of water leaks from under the windshield. The cause of the waterfall is an insufficient layer of glass glue. such a factory defect. Today, such a problem occurs very rarely because, at one time dealers re-glued the windshield under warranty, closer to 200,000 kilometers. The interior fan may whistle and beep. It is installed in the center of the front panel and is difficult to remove. Moreover, to dismantle the fan at the final stage and then install it, you need a special puller, 9,997,284, or a manufactured equivalent. When troubleshooting, wear is always detected near the shaft bearing. When troubleshooting, it usually turns out that not only the brushes of the electric motor are already badly worn, but also the commutator. All three components for the electric motor are sold separately. If desired, you can restore the fan.